The story begins with Mary, a 61-year-old woman looking forward to a quiet birthday dinner with her son Daniel, his wife Ashley, and a few close friends. The seemingly joyful occasion quickly turns into a public ambush as Daniel and Ashley announce their plan to move into Mary's apartment. They present it as a done deal, leveraging her supposed agreement in front of guests to pressure her into compliance. The shocking reveal sets the stage for conflict, hinting at deeper manipulation and entitlement masked under the guise of familial love. As Mary processes the betrayal, she unravels a series of calculated moves orchestrated by Daniel and Ashley. Her son's casual confidence stems from a power of attorney he holds over her, a document signed during a vulnerable hospital stay. Mary discovers that Daniel and Ashley are not just assuming control. They are actively building a narrative of her agreement, staging their takeover as a selfless family transition. Their rehearsed language, the public declarations, and Ashley's staged social media posts make it clear that they are weaponizing appearances to trap Mary legally and socially. This act is marked by Mary's growing realization of their deceit and her strategic moves to regain control. Her decision to contact her lawyer and revoke power of attorney sets the wheels of resistance in motion. Mary executes her plan with meticulous precision. She quietly sells her apartment, cutting Daniel and Ashley out of her will and severing all legal ties. She moves to a secluded lakeside cabin, symbolizing her liberation from their control and reclaiming her autonomy. In her new life, she finds peace, freedom, and community support, far removed from the toxicity she left behind. The story concludes with a sense of poetic justice, as Mary not only outsmarts her manipulative son and daughter-in-law, but also secures her legacy in a way that protects her values and integrity. Her final act of cutting them out completely symbolizes not just an escape, but a rebirth, free from their grasp and stronger than ever. A resilient and self-aware woman in her early 60s, Mary is the heart of the story. She starts off as a trusting mother, blindsided by her son Daniel's manipulative announcement during what was supposed to be a celebratory birthday dinner. Her character arc is one of awakening and empowerment. Initially caught off guard and seemingly cornered by Daniel and Ashley's public pressure, she finds strength through self-reflection and meticulous planning. Her quiet determination grows as she pieces together the extent of their betrayal, leading her to take decisive action, revoking power of attorney, secretly selling her apartment, and cutting them out of her will. Mary's transition from manipulated victim to empowered survivor is both satisfying and inspiring, reflecting her deep resilience and sharp intuition. Daniel represents the embodiment of entitlement and manipulation, cloaked under the pretense of familial affection. His calm and rehearsed demeanor during the announcement is a deliberate power play, designed to corner Mary into agreeing without protest. His use of power of attorney and subtle legal maneuvering exposes his calculating nature. Rather than approaching his mother with respect or humility, he assumes ownership, not just of her property but of her autonomy. Daniel's character is driven by greed and entitlement, believing that his mother's belongings are simply extensions of his own inheritance. His willingness to manipulate legal documentation and public perception showcases his moral decay and lack of empathy. Ashley's role is equally manipulative, but her approach is more performative. She weaponizes politeness and social expectations, using charm and staged emotions to sell the illusion of gratefulness and family unity. Her insistence on recording moments for social media is a calculated strategy to cement their narrative publicly. Her attempts to redecorate Mary's apartment without permission, her false pregnancy announcements, and even her casual talk of letting Mary visit her own balcony reflect her selfishness and lack of respect. Ashley symbolizes the veneer of kindness that masks deeper greed, contrasting sharply against Mary's genuine sentimentality and connection to her home. Iris is a beacon of loyalty and genuine friendship in Mary's life. A retired real estate agent and longtime friend, she steps in when Mary needs her the most. Iris not only helps Mary navigate the complexities of selling her apartment quietly, but does so with discretion and efficiency. Her role symbolizes the true essence of friendship and support, standing in stark contrast to Daniel and Ashley's calculated schemes. Iris's willingness to act without hesitation and her protective instincts highlight the power of real connections built on trust and mutual respect. At the heart of the story is the cold betrayal of a mother by her own son and daughter-in-law. Daniel and Ashley's presumption that they are entitled to Mary's property without asking for permission highlights their deep-seated sense of entitlement. Their audacious announcement at Mary's birthday dinner, treating her apartment as their own and announcing her agreement publicly, is the epitome of manipulative control. This theme underscores the dangerous assumption that familial bonds grant automatic rights to one's wealth and property, regardless of consent or fairness. Mary's journey from vulnerability to empowerment is the story's most compelling transformation. Initially blindsided and trapped by Daniel and Ashley's manipulative tactics, she gradually reclaims her autonomy through strategic decisions. Her secret sale of the apartment, revocation of power of attorney, and complete removal of Daniel and Ashley from her will represent her ultimate assertion of control. Mary's quiet yet resolute fight for her independence sends a powerful message about reclaiming one's life and legacy from those who seek to take advantage. Daniel and Ashley's ruthless manipulation is exposed as not only greedy but predatory. Their rehearsed speeches, staged social media announcements, and legal maneuvering are all part of a calculated plan to wrestle control from Mary. However, their disregard for Mary's autonomy and their assumptions of control eventually backfire. By the end, they are left with nothing. Not just financially, but emotionally isolated from the very person they sought to manipulate. This theme serves as a stark reminder that calculated greed often results in complete loss. Mary's final act of severing ties with Daniel and Ashley is more than just financial. It's symbolic of breaking generational expectations of entitlement and control. In many families, there is an unspoken assumption that wealth and property naturally pass down, sometimes without respect or appreciation. Mary's decision to leave everything to a trust for older women escaping financial abuse signifies her commitment to ending that cycle. Her move to the lakeside cabin represents her liberation, free from toxic family demands and emotional manipulation. The emotional core of the story is rooted in the deep betrayal Mary experiences at the hands of her own son and daughter-in-law. The calculated nature of their manipulation, publicly announcing their takeover of her apartment during her birthday dinner, creates a sense of helplessness and shock. The atmosphere of the dinner is hauntingly described. Candle-lit warmth is contrasted sharply with the coldness of Daniel and Ashley's entitlement. This scene becomes a powerful turning point, marking the beginning of Mary's emotional journey from trust to distrust, and finally, to empowerment. The dinner itself is a masterclass in emotional tension. The flickering candlelight symbolizes the fragility of Mary's trust, while Daniel's public speech transforms a moment of celebration into one of public coercion. Mary's stunned silence, the expectation of her compliance, and the deliberate pressure to smile for the cameras create an atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Her panic-driven nod, a response rooted in shock rather than consent, beautifully illustrates the power dynamics at play. This moment captures the heartache of familial betrayal, the realization that those closest to her have plotted behind her back. As Mary unravels the layers of Daniel's manipulation, his power of attorney, the staged announcements, the attempts to build a legal narrative against her, the tension escalates. Her growing awareness is paced perfectly, giving the reader time to feel the weight of each new revelation. The detailed exploration of Mary's quiet planning, her late-night meetings with her lawyer, and her discovery of Ashley's fake pregnancy heighten the suspense, creating a mounting sense of injustice. Mary's isolation is palpable, yet her resilience shines through as she quietly strategizes her way out of their trap. The final act of the story is both cathartic and empowering. Mary's secret sale of the apartment and her move to the lakeside cabin symbolize her complete liberation from Daniel and Ashley's manipulation. The description of her first night at the cabin, sipping tea, breathing in the crisp air, and embracing the silence, provides a serene sense of closure. It's a powerful moment of justice. Mary not only reclaims her independence, but also redefines her legacy on her own terms. The cabin represents not just freedom, but peace, a long-deserved escape from toxicity. Mary's apartment is more than just a living space. It symbolizes her life's work, stability, and memories with her late husband. It's where she built her life, endured hardships, and cherished moments of love and resilience. Daniel and Ashley's attempt to seize the apartment without her consent is not just a grab for property. It's an attempt to erase her history and her emotional connection to her past. Selling the apartment on her own terms is symbolic of reclaiming her agency, cutting off their sense of entitlement, and protecting the legacy she holds dear. Locks and keys appear throughout the story as a representation of control and security. When Mary first fears that the locks may have been changed, it symbolizes her anxiety over losing control of her own life. Later, when she actually changes the locks without informing Daniel, it is a metaphor for taking back her autonomy. It is a subtle yet powerful action that reflects her growing strength and determination to protect herself from further manipulation. Ashley's bold assumption of redesigning Mary's apartment with nursery plans is a symbolic manifestation of entitlement and invasion. The plans represent not just their claim over Mary's physical space, but also their expectation to shape her legacy without her consent. The audacity to envision crib placements, color swatches, and redecoration before even asking Mary highlights their belief that her space is already theirs to manipulate. It's a physical representation of their presumption of ownership over Mary's life and memories. The lakeside cabin symbolizes new beginnings, self-determined peace, and true independence. Unlike the apartment, which was rooted in memories and shared with her late husband, the cabin is entirely her own. A fresh start, free from the constraints of family expectations and manipulation. It represents her final liberation, a space where she can heal, reflect, and build a new life unburdened by deceit. The serenity and quietness of the cabin mark Mary's journey toward solitude and self-empowerment, a stark contrast to the suffocating entitlement of her former life. The narrative is rich with sensory detail, creating a vivid backdrop that allows readers to fully experience Mary's journey. From the flicker of candlelight at her birthday dinner, to the sound of her heels clicking on the pavement during her long walk home, each scene is crafted with a sharp sense of place. The descriptions of her apartment, its lace curtains, her husband's photographs, and the creaking floorboards, serve not only as setting but as emotional anchors, symbolizing her life's memories and stability. The serene imagery of the lakeside cabin in the final act evokes feelings of freedom and renewal, contrasting sharply with the suffocating tension of her former life. Mary's inner monologue is a driving force in the storytelling, providing insight into her fears, realizations, and strategic planning. Her thoughts are raw and unfiltered, capturing the shock of betrayal and the weight of her decision-making. As she unravels Daniel and Ashley's schemes, her reflections reveal not just her pain, but her growing resolve to fight back. This introspective style allows readers to experience her emotional arc firsthand, from shock and disbelief to empowerment and liberation. It's through her thoughts that the audience witnesses her transformation, making her final stand against her manipulative family feel both justified and triumphant. The dialogue is sharp, strategic, and layered with subtext, mirroring the hidden motives of the characters. Daniel's smooth, rehearsed speeches at the birthday dinner are filled with manipulative language designed to coerce Mary into agreement publicly. Ashley's overly sweet demeanor and strategic social media announcements reveal her calculated attempts to cement their false narrative. In contrast, Mary's dialogue shifts from stunned compliance to assertive clarity, symbolizing her journey from vulnerability to strength. Each spoken line is loaded with tension, serving as a battleground for control and dominance. The pacing of the story is deliberately slow burn, mirroring Mary's gradual discovery of betrayal and her calculated response. The tension builds methodically, with each scene adding another layer of deception or revelation. This deliberate pacing allows readers to feel Mary's growing awareness and mounting resolve. The slow unraveling of Daniel and Ashley's manipulation creates suspense, keeping the reader engaged as Mary methodically dismantles their plans piece by piece. One of the key plot points involves the power of attorney and financial manipulation that Daniel wields over Mary. While the narrative touches on these legal aspects, it could benefit from clearer explanations for audiences who may not be familiar with legal terminology or the implications of such documents. A brief, straightforward explanation woven into the dialogue or Mary's inner monologue could demystify the legal jargon, making the power dynamics more accessible and impactful. This would also serve to highlight just how vulnerable Mary was, made by signing those documents, amplifying the tension and stakes. Daniel's role as the primary antagonist is well established, but his sudden shift from loving son to manipulative predator could be further explored. Understanding the root of his entitlement and greed, whether it stemmed from financial desperation, strained family dynamics, or hidden resentment, would add layers to his character. A few flashbacks or subtle references to their past relationship might illuminate the journey that led him to betray his mother so deeply. This would not only provide context for his actions but also elevate the emotional stakes when Mary finally cuts him out of her life. Ashley is portrayed almost exclusively as a scheming, manipulative figure whose sole purpose seems to be the acquisition of Mary's apartment. While this serves the narrative well in terms of conflict, her character would feel more authentic and impactful if she were given shades of complexity, introducing moments of doubt, guilt, or even vulnerability, perhaps a conversation where she questions their actions or a fleeting moment where she hesitates, could humanize her. This would make her eventual downfall more satisfying and realistic, as it would contrast her greed with flickers of suppressed conscience. The reactions from friends, family, and social media are largely one-sided, believing Daniel and Ashley's narrative without much hesitation. Adding more skepticism or mixed reactions from side characters would bring realism and complexity to the social fallout. For example, a close friend of Mary's who doubts Ashley's sincerity, or a family member who quietly reaches out to check on Mary's well-being, would add believability and emotional tension. While Mary's strength and strategic planning are well documented, a deeper exploration of her emotional struggle and inner conflict could elevate the story's impact. Moments of self-doubt, reflections on her late husband's guidance, or flashes of nostalgia for a time when she felt secure and loved would heighten the reader's empathy for her journey. This would also amplify the satisfaction of her eventual victory and liberation. The second act, where Mary discovers the manipulation and begins her countermeasures, is compelling but slightly rushed in sections. A bit more breathing room to explore her planning, perhaps showing her research, discussions with her lawyer, or even subtle ways she observes Daniel and Ashley, would build tension and give the audience a stronger sense of her growing awareness and strategic thinking. The final scene where Daniel confronts Mary at her door after learning about the sale could be even more emotionally charged and symbolic. A face-to-face confrontation where Mary firmly asserts her independence, denying him entry not just to her apartment but to her life, would deliver a more impactful sense of closure. This would also serve as a powerful visual for the audience, solidifying Mary's strength and Daniel's helplessness in one decisive moment.